Alright, what's going on? I'm gonna do a fight of the year video. Okay, I'm gonna give you the names that popped up in my head, who guys that I think should be mentioned. Alright, obviously I'm probably gonna forget some people, but if whoever you think should be fight of the year, drop it in the comments below. If anyone I didn't mention or whatever, drop it in the comments below, alright? So I'm gonna give you the names and I'm gonna tell you why I think they belong there, right? I have 8 guys here. I have Joe Smith Jr., I have Vasyl Lomachenko, I have Carl Frampton, I have Andre Ward, I have Roman Gonzalez, I have Terrence Crawford, Jamal Charlo, and Manny Pacquiao. Right, those are the 8 guys that I feel should be mentioned as fighter of the year. All right. Now, I'm gonna give you a reason for each guy, and then I'm gonna give you my top 3. All right, top 3. Joe Smith Jr., for obvious reasons. All right, he knocked out Bernard Hopkins. He knocked out Farfar. I think he should be at least mentioned. Okay. He beat Bernard Hopkins and knocked him out. You know. The thing is, he beat a 52-year-old Bernard Hopkins, one that was coming off of a loss and a 2-year layoff. Okay, it's gonna be 52 in January. So, I mean, it's still a big win, okay? There's still people that believe that Hopkins was going to win this fight. I never made a video about it because, you know, I didn't understand the fight. You know, it was more like I thought Hopkins was going to retire and not fight again. You know, and if he were to come back and fight again after the Kovalev loss, I thought it should have been immediately. I mean, within the year or 6 months. You know, going 2 years without fighting, he already looked old fighting Kovalev. He looked older fighting Joe Smith Jr. You know what I'm saying? So it's still a good win for Joe Smith Jr. The Farfar fight is really a good win because he's knocked Farfar out in the first round, and Farfar is one of the top fighters at 175. All right, he's the only fighter that was able to stop Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. All right, he gave Stevenson a great fight, okay, a tough fight, even knocked him down. So I consider Farfar to be a top guy at 175, and for Joe Smith to go in there and knock him out in 1 round, I thought it was very impressive. You know, I mean, Farfar has been knocked out before, but this is when he was fighting at the lower weights. All right. I think Curtis Stevens might have knocked him out back in the day, but this is when he was like fighting at, I don't know, 154 or 147 or something like that. You know, this is when Farfar was a much smaller guy. So anyway, I have Joe Smith there. All right, I brought him up. Vasyl Lomachenko. He should be there because he fought 2 really good fighters at 130. And he stopped them both. Okay, I think he looked the most impressive and the most dominant in the 2 wins that he got this year. Okay, against 2 good fighters, against the champion and one of the most dangerous fighters at 130. You know, I mean, Walters was the most dangerous, one of the most dangerous at 126. He was one of the most dangerous at 130, and Vasyl Lomachenko beat them both without losing a round. All right, a round, and he stopped both. Okay, he barely got hit against both of these fighters. All right, so you got to mention Lomachenko. Frampton, 2 good fighters he beat. All right, 2 fighters that he should have fought maybe within the last couple of years. Okay, he beat Leo Santa Cruz, undefeated. All right, he beat undefeated Scott Quigg. Okay, both of those guys were coming off good wins. All right, he beat Quigg after knocking out Kiko Martinez in 1 round when Frampton had 2 fights against Martinez, all right, that went a lot longer, okay? And then beating Leo Santa Cruz, coming off a fight of the year performance against Abner Mares. Both of those guys were undefeated. Both are good, very good fighters. They were both very good at 122, okay? The only thing is, all 3 of those guys ducked Guillermo Rigondeaux. You can question both resumes as far as, you know, I'll get more into that later, but you could definitely question the resumes of both Leah Santa Cruz and Scott Quigg, because they both only really had one really notable fight, you know, before even fighting Carl Frampton. But those are still very good wins, all right? So I hear Frampton the most as far as fight of the year. I see his name get thrown around there the most as far as fight of the year. Andre Ward, all right, 3 fights this year. We haven't seen Andre Ward this active in a very, very long time. Okay, he beat an undefeated Sullivan de Barrera in a fight that I'm surprised that he took. All right, I mean, he did fight Paul Smith last year, but that was a tune-up match, in my opinion. I thought Sullivan Barrera was a dangerous fight for him. Sullivan Barrera, knockout power, big guy at 175. All right, undefeated. All right, has looked impressive in just about all of his fights, leading up to Andre Ward. And I thought Ward taking that fight was dangerous. I thought Ward taking that fight was very early for a guy that hasn't been that active. All right, and he performed pretty well, okay? Alexander Brand, obviously that was a tune-up match. That's it. You know, it was a tune-up match. Brand didn't win a round. It was just a tune-up match. It is what it is, you know? And then fighting Sergey Kovalev. All right? Sergey Kovalev win was the biggest win in boxing this year, okay? The most notable win. He beat a top 5 pound-for-pound fighter, all right? An undefeated one, a dangerous one, a guy that has huge knockout power, all right? A guy that I thought retired Bernard Hopkins, you know? I mean, Kovalev is the goods. Whether you like him or not, he's the goods, all right? I thought Kovalev edged the fight, all right? I thought he edged the fight. But I thought at bare minimum the fight should have been a draw. I don't think Ward did enough to win the fight, but that's my opinion. Obviously, the judges feel differently. A lot of the fans feel differently. I thought Kovalev edged the fight, though, okay? But on paper, that's by far the best win in boxing, all right? No one has fought anyone on the level of Kovalev and beat him this year. Nowhere near it, all right? So that was the biggest win this year in boxing, in my opinion. And that pretty much gave Ward his pound-for-pound status, all right? Roman Gonzalez, all right? You got to mention him. 2 tough fights down there. He fought, what's his name? McWilliams Arroyo, a tough fighter. A dangerous fight going into the fight. Thought that was going to be a tough fight for him, and it was. You know, plenty of people thought, you know, Roman Gonzalez lost that fight, right? People wanted to see a rematch after the fight. And then he fought Carlos Cuadras, an even tougher fighter, even more dangerous fight, all right? In my opinion, all right? And a lot of people thought Cuadras won that fight, even more so than the Arroyo fight, all right? So I think, you know, 2 big wins, but the performances weren't as impressive as some of the other guys I named on this list, okay? Those were 2 very, very close fights. 2 debatable fights at that, all right? Good fights, tough fights, but 2 debatable fights, all right? Leave it at that, all right? Terrence Crawford, 3 fights this year for Hank Lundy. Not a tune-up fight. Not a tune-up fight, okay? Hank Lundy's a tough fighter. He's a tough fighter. You know, I mean, he's always going to give, you know, I think Hank Lundy had some of the skills to at least give Terrence Crawford some problems, okay? With his hand speed, he can fight both orthodox, southpaw. All right, the guy's a good fighter, good technician, all right? He has skills, but I didn't think he was going to win this fight, okay? I didn't think Hank Lundy was going to win this fight. I thought he might have exposed some flaws in Terrence Crawford, and we really didn't see that. Hank won maybe the first round, but Terrence Crawford figured him out quickly. I went to that fight, and Terrence Crawford beat him up just like everybody else, okay? The Victor Postol fight was big. All right, that was a big win. That's one of the most notable wins this year in boxing as well. Victor Postol is definitely one of the top fighters at 140. For him to stop Matisse and Terrence Crawford, a lot of people thought Postol would win this fight. Okay, there's people that thought Postol was going to be an issue. I think that Postal was Terrence Crawford's biggest win in his career. All right, and I thought Crawford clearly won that fight. Okay, I thought that the fight was very competitive in the opening rounds, but outside after those knockdowns, I thought Crawford was in cruise control all the way into the decision. Okay, I wish Crawford stopped him. It would have been as much a much more impressive win if he had stopped Postal. I thought he could have stopped Postal, but I think he played it safe. He wanted to play it safe. That's what he did, and that's what it was. All right, but still a huge win. All right, and this is why that win is why he should be mentioned. All right, John Molina Jr. It was a tune-up fight. All right, complete tune-up fight. John Molina had no chance of winning that fight. All right, and I can't even give him a puncher's chance. You know, he's a tough fighter. All right, he has a lot of heart. He's been down. He's come back in fights. We know it. All right, but that fight should have never been. This should have never happened. You know, it was just a tune-up fight. It is stay busy fight. That's all it was. And that's like Ward fighting Alexander Brand. It's just tune-up fight. It's just stay busy. All right, but Crawford should definitely be mentioned. I threw Jamal Charlo there because I thought he had the most notable wins at 154 this year. I think that he's at the end of this list as far as people that should be mentioned. The Trout win was good. All right, Trout has lost before, but it was a good fight and it was a good performance. In my opinion, that was his first true test. People say Bundridge. I didn't think Bundridge was that much of a test for Jamal Charlo. Obviously, we saw the outcome of that. I never thought highly of Bundridge, and I thought Charlo, being that he's a big guy, strength, and definitely a far superior boxer than Bundridge, I thought that was going to be an easy fight. But this fight here was a good fight. It was a good test for Charlo. Some people think that Trout won the fight. Some people thought it was a draw. I thought it was a draw. All right, I personally thought it was a draw. But and beating undefeated J-Rock, Julian Williams. All right. And the only argument with that is that Julian hasn't fought anyone. This was Julian's first test, and he got knocked out. It's subjective. It's all subjective with me. I think Julian Williams is a very good fighter. And for Jamal to knock him out the way that he did, I thought that was a huge knockout. I think that was one of the biggest knockouts of the year. And I threw him on here because at 154 he had the biggest wins. All right, I thought he had the best. I think he did the best at 154 this year. All right, beating two good top 5, top 6, junior middleweights in my opinion. All right, and last person, I got Manny Pacquiao. How can you not bring him up? He beat Tim Bradley for a third time. I know it's for a third time. I know they fought 3 times. I know people think Pacquiao won all 3 of those fights. But going into this fight, Bradley was coming off some good momentum, stopping Brandon Rios, being the first to stop him. No one ever expected that to happen. Okay, people going into that fight, people thought Rios, had a good chance of maybe upsetting Tim Bradley. All right, if Tim Bradley was going to go to war with this guy, people thought a tip-top Brandon Rios was going to stop him, or might have not stopped him, but give him some trouble. And Bradley stopped him, and he fought Bradley fought Manny Pacquiao, had a new trainer, had a new direction. I thought that Bradley might have gave Pacquiao the hardest fight in this one, and for Pacquiao to beat him pretty clearly was a big win. Plus, he beat Jesse Vargas. All right, Jesse Vargas is another top fighter at 147, and for the old man to still be able to beat these guys, especially coming off of a layoff and losing to Floyd Mayweather, surgery, whatever, I think that he should be mentioned as fighter of the year. All right. So these are my top 3. I think number 3 is Frampton. I put him at number 3. I know many think he's number 1. I just think that Lomachenko's and Ward's wins are more impressive because Lomachenko and the way that he beat his opponents were more impressive. I think those fighters that Frampton beat, should be mentioned in the same area code of the fighters that Lomachenko beat. Okay, beating Nicholas Walters. You got Nicholas Walters. You had Roman Gonzalez, or not Roman Gonzalez. Who did he fight? Rocky Martinez. Okay, those guys are on the same set level of Quigg and Leo Santa Cruz, in my opinion. You know, in fact, I think if I had to rank the four of those guys, I would rank it Walters, Cruz, Quigg, and Martinez. Okay, you know, so they're all around the same to me, and I think that Lomachenko's wins were much more impressive. Okay, and I think it wouldn't have been a good fight if Lomachenko were to have fought Quigg or Leo Santa Cruz. All right, the way that Loma beat his opponents, I had to give him the edge over Carl Frampton. Okay, big wins. I'm not trying to take anything from Frampton. Big wins, but I think Loma slight edged him. And to finish this video off, I have to give the slight edge to Andre Ward as fighter, as number 1. Give Lomachenko number 2. I give Frampton number 3. I gave it to Ward because he beat Sergey Kovalev. All right, this year. On paper, he beat Sergey Kovalev. All right. None of those guys that either Frampton or Lomachenko is anywhere near on the level as Sergey Kovalev. All right. Sergey Kovalev is one of the elite, and I think he's still one of the top 3 or 4 or 5 fighters in boxing right now, pound for pound. Sergey Kovalev. So I don't have any of those other guys nowhere near that. You know, I think Quigg or none of those other opponents, Leo Santa Cruz, you know, those guys, like I said earlier, Leo Santa Cruz, Quigg, Frampton, all 3 of them ducked Guillermo Rigondeaux. All right, none of them fight. If they had fought him and beat him, you know, and then fought, and you know, and then if they had fought Rigondeaux and beat Rigondeaux, then we could talk about it. But that didn't happen, you know. And then Loma, good wins. He's doing what he has to do. Great wins. The most impressive wins this year were by Lomachenko. The most dominating wins. He outboxed these guys until they either quit or got knocked out. All right. But Ward fought an undefeated Sullivan Barrera, beat him, got a decision. All right. And he fought an undefeated Sergey Kovalev and beat him. Regardless of how I feel, I have to throw that out of the window. All right. I know Lomachenko looked more impressive, but he fought Sergey Kovalev and he won a decision over him. So I have to give him the number 1. All right. Anyone that I didn't mention, leave it, drop it in the comments. Anyone that you think, you know, give me your thoughts like you guys usually do. All right. Your order. I gave up 8 names, you know, but those are the 8 guys that popped up who I think should be mentioned. All right. Anybody I forgot, drop that. Make sure you guys subscribe as well. And I'll see you on the next one. Peace.